says, "What follows is a report filled by Genitor Major Lucas Anazon, based upon observations conducted in the Anaplar system. I have taken the liberty of abridging this report down to its fundamental facts. In some areas, Anazon has indulged himself in such a degree of speculation in the original as to render it highly suspect." To understand the Orkoid species, one must first be aware of their, so far, unique xenological traits. When I refer to the Orkoid species, I refer to all aspects of greenskin society, from the dominant orcs through to the smaller Gretchen, or grots if you will, the snotlins and the sub-animal squigs. Although physically and anatomically diverse, these different species all share a common genetic base. Every Orkoid is a symbiosis of two biologies within a single structure, as well as a standard gene spiral. Every Orkoid also possesses a spiral of algal or fungal base. The standard genetic structure of an Orkoid remains essentially the same as that of a man, in that it dictates the majority of the creature's form and biological processes. However, it is the plant-like secondary structure which gives orcs their resilience to damage, and is the key to understanding their procreative cycle. The algal cellular subsystem is comparable in many ways to the human bloodstream. It is bound within their anatomical structure at a molecular level, and works alongside the standard genetic and biological processes. The Orkoid algal structure responds to damage in combination with blood clotting, and so forth. This, of course, means that even large wounds will be covered in a hard, skin-like layer within a few hours of the injury occurring, as the algal cells rapidly replicate to repair the damage. We found that, however serious the injury, if the Orkoid did not die immediately from shock, it was unlikely to die from loss of blood or organ trauma. This regenerative process is aided by the orc's crude medical knowledge. Whole limbs can be grafted on, organs freely swapped, wounds stapled shut, and so forth, with only 0.0023% chance of tissue rejection. The Orkoid's ability to withstand such usually mortal wounds makes them such a fearsome prospect. Note to the Fabricator General, please have our Imperial commanders examine the dedication into which we conduct battlefield cleansing techniques. No matter how mortal a wound looks, a live orc must be dispatched in a conclusively lethal manner, such as beheading and disemboweling. Despite the symbiosis of the two cell structures, each has its own gene strand. The Orkoid's standard strand defines what type it is, orc, grot, etc., whilst the algal gene strand remains consistent, whatever subspecies of Orkoid. This common heritage is remarkable, and leaves me with no other conclusion than that of genetic manipulation and restructuring sometime in the Orkoid's distant past. Anzion goes on to elucidate at some length regarding his theory of Orkoids being a genetically engineered survivor race, something I find hard to credit in the light of mankind's manifest destiny to rule the galaxy. We have long known Orkoids to be tougher than humans, but now we have the evidence to explain the nature and source of this increased resilience. However, the algal substrand is a much more dangerous threat due to the strange manner in which Orkoids procreate. The algal matter within an Orkoid contains the genetic makeup of all the Orkoid species, not just the codes of life for the species carrying it. Throughout an Orkoid's life, it sheds spore-like cells containing the entire genetic code of the Orkoid race. These are shed in an unconscious manner, much as a human replicates skin cells and sheds the dead tissue without them realizing it. These spores are microscopic in nature and fulfill a number of functions. First, they can be detected by the highly sensitive nasal organs of the Orkoids, conveying a variety of information, such as status, age, and so on. It also enables an Orkoid to locate other Orkoids over quite a wide distance, several miles, given wind strength, direction, and so on. The spores are also the reproductive mechanism of an Orkoid. When they settle into the correct conditions, the spore will evolve into the species whose genetic structure it contains. Orkoid spores require dank, dark places to activate, much like other algae and fungi. Caves and forests are the most successful spawning sites for orkoid spores, but even in the most arid conditions, a proportionate number of spores will still land within a site suitable for development. The spore grows downwards first, with tiny rootlets that seek out nutrition and moisture, just like any other plant. However, once the algal stage is established, orkoid cells are generated in tandem development, and the orkoid literally grows like any vegetative tumour. It is an amazing process to observe. It takes quite a long time for an orc to grow, whilst the smaller squigs, snotlings and so forth take a proportionately shorter length of time to develop. Orkoids do not emerge once they have reached the required degree of maturity. However, due to the nature of the spore process, dozens or even hundreds of orkoids will emerge within a short space of time. The orkoid algal cells contain the gene strands for the diverse orkoid species, and so a single type of orkoid can still propagate an entire community on its own. The Gretchen or grots, the snotlings, orcs and squigs can all be generated from the same source, settle in the same area, and grow proportionately. The squigs emerge first and breed faster, creating a substantial food source, swiftly followed by snotlings who can start to prepare the area. Then the Gretchen arrive and pave the way for the emerging orcs to establish a whole thriving community. Perhaps within a year of the spores landing, the orkoids will be thriving quite easily. Laboratory tests show that lone spores, even if they land within an agreeable environment, will only ever evolve into a simple fungus. The rare few that evolve into one of the higher orkoid forms and manages to hatch generally wither and die within a short period of time, a matter of hours rather than days, and show much regressed development compared with a newly emerging orkoid amongst its own kind. Our studies of orkoid growth and migration also prove that spores which land close to an existing settlement also suffer this fate. We can find no decisive physical reason for this pattern. Together with some of my colleagues, I have formulated the Anzion theorem of psychic physical growth of orkoids. In essence, we speculate that some sort of psychic resonance limits spore growth in proximity to established orc settlements, ensuring an even spread of colonization. Whilst these observations may lead us to conclude that this is baseless conjecture, concluding that the orkoids can generate a greater number of spores in the latter stages of their lifespan with a final mass release after death. If correct, this observation means that old battlefields and worlds liberated from the orcs are exceedingly vulnerable to reinfestation at a later stage. It is also possible that ships could unwittingly transport spores from world to world. It is easy to get carried away with this concept and contemplate the dangers of Mars or Holy Terror by orkoid spores. A farcical idea. Though it is easy to be puzzled by reports of orcs killed in the lower reaches of Necromunda or Tarsulus. Please inform our Imperial commanders that orkoid bodies must be thoroughly burnt, disintegrated, or dumped into the ether. To make matters worse, the dormant orkoids are almost undetectable, with only a patch of common fungus or algal growth to indicate that something is amiss. Emerging orkoids are almost at their most mature state, almost fully grown, much like a human adolescent. Within a short period, the orkoid will have all the characteristics of a full adult, including the facility of speech, as well as understanding fairly complex mechanics and automotive processes. Skills seem to be genetically engineered into orkoids. Their physicians, scientists, and other specialists have their knowledge inherent in them. Think of the possibilities of training our own fighting forces if we could alter their genetic makeup so they could instinctively know how to strip and clean a weapon, fight in close melee, and have rudimentary knowledge of strategy and tactics. Even with the genetically engineered Adeptus Astartes, it takes almost 10 years of intensive therapy and physical alteration to perfect what an orc knows instinctively. Lastly, by fighting orcs, we make them stronger. As insane as it sounds, the orkoids, orcs more than any other subspecies, literally thrive on warfare. Most orcs have similar physical dimensions when they have fully matured. However, the most belligerent and aggressive the orc is, the larger it grows. Due to the way that the orc's hierarchy is structured, with fighting to determine ranking, the most highly ranking orcs are the largest. This is not because they are better at fighting, but that a belligerent aggressive orc, one who has beaten his opponent, will put on several pounds of additional muscle tissue over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Orcs preparing to challenge a superior will also put on weight as their psyche develops the necessary aggression, and so the higher ranking orc will be able to detect this and fight the usurper before it has reached full development. Over extended fighting, the average size of the fighting orc has been known to increase by several inches, and almost stowed in solid muscular tissue. It is not within my purpose to speculate on ways to combat these beasts, but to provide information to those who must. I myself am most alarmed by these findings, and never again will I mock our green-skinned adversaries, no matter how crude and seemingly stupid they are. Note: there is no evidence to suggest an orc possesses an intelligence any less than a human. Cultural styles merely dictate a more straightforward approach to problem-solving, and a lack of theoretical aspect and conceptualizing until completion.
Your obedient servant.
Report transmitted to German Prime. Received, Mars. Destination, Mars. Date,